Hey everyone, welcome to Office Hours, where we answer your media and tech-related production questions every day and have been for years now. Alexander Knight in Port Coquitlam, British Columbia, Canada is our reader today. Alexander, what have we got on tap?
First question this morning is coming from Andy Kokendorfer in Vieira, Florida, USA. Can you recommend a home office router that supports balanced or failover wired IP connections?
And Jason Bache is going to start us off this morning. Jason?
Yeah, sure. All day, every day. I would say any of the rack-mounted Dream Machine Pros, from Ubiquiti are going to be a great choice. And it's pretty easy to figure out, which one's going to be right for you. The differences aren't giant. So, really just go into compare and see what suits your needs.
Alex Lindsay.
Yeah, I'll second the Dream Machine. There's some places where it may not make the most sense, but it's a great piece of hardware that I'm pretty happy with. You also have to think about what you mean by failover. So how quickly is it going to fail over? The problem is if it's seamless, there's a chance it's going to just go back and forth all the time, which causes a bunch of other problems. And so a lot of times, just to manage your expectations, usually this is measured in seconds, not milliseconds.
Next question.
This one's from the QR code. Shima Hervé in Kigali, Rwanda is asking, could you walk us through the step-by-step process of how remote panelists are integrated into the production workflow in Office Hours Global? Specifically, which software and hardware solutions are used to ensure seamless communication, video sync?
Well, we've been doing this for a long time, nearly 5 years now, so we're going to start with Ronnie Hofsoy for some answers. Ronnie?
Yeah, just to start off, the system is based on Zoom, so all participants are in a Zoom meeting, which then in the other end is taken back from the cloud using software from Zoom. In this case, we use something called Zoom ISO, which then takes every single participant that are going to be answering a question down to a decklink card, which is then sent out from the decklink card using baseband SDI into a Constellation switcher. But there's a lot more to it because everything that is happening, almost everything that is happening behind the scenes is kind of automated, and I'm pretty sure there are others in the panel that can answer this to a much more detail. But the basics is that we use Zoom, and then we tap into Zoom using a Mac machine running Zoom ISO, and then going out on hardware for the rest of the production.
And we're fortunate that the father of Office Hours is on the panel today, Alex.
I think of myself as chief troublemaker, but one of the things that so we do this in a lot of different ways. So the main thing is that we use Zoom in all of those cases currently. We're using hardware SDI outputs in the morning show that you see here, and that we consider really still our state-of-the-art solution to make that actually happen. But we're also getting very good at using a Viz Vector, which is what we use on Monday nights for extra hours. Also use Ecamm on Thursday nights for the rundown. We use, and then on Saturdays we're using vMix for some of the, and then I use for the firesides, I use Nemo Live. With many of these now, one of the things that's happening is Zoom is becoming integrated with the software itself. So for the software switchers, whether it's Mimo or Vector, and we found that to be a very compelling solution. So now the advantage of de-embedding all of this stuff and putting it all into the system is that we're able to do things like adjust sync in the hardware system. We can do we can even do color correction. We don't do that as much as we have, but we can do lots of different things with each person. One of the things that really works about Zoom for us is there's a lot of other ways to do transports. But it turns out that the breakout rooms become very useful to us. Being able to move people from one room to another. Like right now, we're in a room. We came in and we were in the room that you would normally have, and we were immediately moved out of that room. Then we're moved into a room where we're prepared and ready to go. Then we're moved into another room where the broadcast is. And so these are a lot of different things. And it's definitely, when you talk about seamless, one of the big things that makes it seamless is the fact that we have all these breakout rooms that we can work with. As soon as we shift, I find that I work in other environments where we aren't using Zoom, And as soon as we shift away from the breakout rooms themselves, it becomes much more complicated, and I find to be a much less pleasurable experience for the panelists when we don't have a way to just kind of seamlessly move them from one environment to another.
And next question.
This one's from Craig Kadoki in Toronto. Has anyone looked at the DollyPlus 2, and what level of production would you use this in?
Courtney Gooden, did you take a look at this?
I haven't taken a look at it. It's basically a motorized dolly. It's kind of a triangle that your tripod sits on. So I was trying to bring up the image, but then I lost it again. Anyway, if I get it back up here, I'll take a look at it. It's basically a small wheeled triangle that your tripod sits on. And they also make a motorized tripod that can go up and down with motorized and a motorized camera head. And the way they show this being used is you set various waypoints along the path that you want it to traverse, and it's motorized then and will drive across that path on cue. You can set curved paths or straight paths, point A to point B. To set a curved path, you set 3 points, and it'll draw a nice curve between it. The problem with this is you have to have a very smooth floor, and if you have a grip department to come in there and lay down a dance floor, you can see it there on the program feed. Then that's great. You have to have a smooth floor, and you have to have everything has to be wireless, because I don't think it can drag wires around behind it, because those are very tiny wheels on that motorized base. So, if you have any kind of texture in the floor or carpet, it's not going to work. You have to have a really smooth floor for it to move on. I don't think there's any kind of track that supports a three-wheeled dolly that I know about there, but maybe there is. Also,
Alex?
you have to pair it with to get changes in elevation and changes in pan, tilt, zoom to follow stuff. You need also robotic motorized PTZ and a motorized tripod. By the time you put it all together, you're up near the price of a Fisher, probably.
Alex, you had some thoughts.
Well, I think you can't get to the price of a Fisher because it's priceless. It's a rental only, I think. And so
I think it's about $2,400 for the bases. I saw that number.
The Fisher, the Fisher Dolly. I didn't know you could rent. I didn't know you could.
Oh no, I was talking about this motorized tripod.
Oh, okay. I think that I agree with Courtney that the small wheels, and you would need a very good surface to run this on to make this work. It does look cool. Here's the image that of where it works. And so you have these little wheels here that are making, and this is one's just kind of, I guess, following along. These ones are doing the steering and the movement. And again, you have this PTZ. Now, you could probably put anything on there as a PTZ and kind of coordinate it. So you might be able to put some kind of DJI on or something, other things like that. So, but to have them all work together, I think you'd all need to use Edelchrome. And they've played with a lot of things like this. They have a jib as well, the Jib 1, which allows you to pre-program jib moves. So it's, they're really focused again on this kind of creator community of putting these things together. But I do think that you'd end up with a lot of small vibrations you'd have to figure out how to solve. And I'm not clear that the PTZ that they show there has any kind of anything to stabilize it. So I don't know if that would make a difference. And so you'd have to figure that out.
Yeah, Edelchrome is a highly respected name in the still photography field. Been around for a long, long time. They make very good stuff, but it tends to not be inexpensive. This isn't a budget solution typically, and I thought the same first thing.
I will say for what it's doing, it's a pretty low budget. I mean, so for if it actually works, and they have really focused on this kind of sub $5,000 solution of things that you can do that are, again, pre-programmed. They have a lot of different tools that they're obviously focused on this kind of creator community of wanting to create product shots and so on and so forth. The kind of, I mean, they show a car here, but you most likely someone who's going to do a car shot would probably use something bigger. But I think that there is they do have a space that they're starting to take advantage of, and I've talked to people who've got the jib version of this, and they're super happy with it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of great engineering, but we're seeing kind of a push in the general communities of lower prices, the newer kind of stuff that takes some of the engineering of the bigger things it used to be. It used to be if you really wanted a professional tripod, you were looking $5,000 plus, and you could get up to $10,000 or $15,000 really easily. Now there's a ton of activity in the under $1,000 space because cameras are lighter and the load that's required for some of the support equipment isn't as big. But I agree with Alex in terms of the fact that it's great that somebody's working in the upper mid-range, what we used to call that in these $2,000-$3,000 units, and making them really solid and well-performing as opposed to just taking the junkiness of the low-end stuff that we used to find and making it a little bit better. These look pretty good. So,
and what really sets them apart beyond storage or support is the motors. So being able to pre-program them with your iPhone, like this is the JIB-1 or the JIB-Plus, I think. So that's not just a JIB; it's a JIB that you can, with your phone, build the move on. And again, I've talked to folks that have used these, and they use it every day. They really enjoy that. Is it the same as Mark Roberts? Probably not. but if you're looking for a little move that goes up or something like that, you want to pre-program it. It's pretty slick.
Well, and they're going after the fact that so many more people are doing production now. I mean, you get so many more YouTube influencers. It's not just the Hollywood types that need these kind of camera moves, and that's cool for everybody. And
it's a really interesting ecosystem because you have this huge market for people to sell into because of YouTube. But the fact that they're making all these products for these creators makes the content for the creators look just better and better and better and better because they're getting all these tools that are sub $5,000, sub $10,000.
Don't forget, we're taking your questions always. You can ask questions, chat about questions, and vote on them in Mukana, our live Q&A system. Go to officehours.global/join. We'll send you an email within a day or so. And once you've done that, you can get into the system. You can ask your questions and vote on them. And voting is very important because the questions with the most votes we get to quicker and spend more time with. That's officehours.global/join. Next question.
This question's coming from Douglas Carmichael. The Shrine's new L-Acoustics PA is Soundvision-modeled and motor hung for removal. How is it flown in the exact same position each time to match the design?
Alexander's going to take this on himself. Alexander?
So I just thought I'd pull up this. So this is he's got a link to the Mix Online article here, and what we're looking at, and there's not a fantastic photo, but you can see the array hung here. So you can see there's there's a hang here and there's a hang over here. My guess, the article does say that it is motorized. So ideally, they would have presets on that motor that they would, on the remote, they could just program the presets and the PA would come down exactly where it needs to be. I can't say that with certainty because I don't know the venue. But if it is motorized, you would think they would have those presets because that sure would make it a lot more consistent and easy to adjust every single time.
Courtney Gooden.
I have worked at the Shrine many times, and so I do know the venue. And in most venues like this, they have chain hoist anchor points because traveling shows come into these auditoriums all the time. They bring their own lighting gear, which attaches to anchor points in the ceiling, which are designed to hold the load. They're rated for a certain load, and they're big eye hooks that are up there attached to the steel of the building. And you just hook on a chain hoist, and you hook up your speaker array, and you hoist it up to the desired height, which you can measure with a laser pointer and calculator on your phone to get it at the right height. And you're, as long as you get it within a foot or so of the within a few inches or so, it's probably not going to make much difference in the sound. It makes more of a difference in the acoustics in that room as to how many people are in the room rather than the exact height of the speaker. One thing I looked at this, I hate this design. They put this in the middle of the room, and then they took out the seats and have this standing around. They put the performer on top, and then they blind everybody with these LED walls that they're looking right into, and they have to strain their necks to look up at the person who is performing. I don't think this is a very comfortable, very good layout. Also, the people in the audience are then, if they're lighting the guy on stage, and you can see how poorly lit he is, they're staring into the lights. They're lighting the guy on the stage. So I really don't like this layout. Maybe it sounds good, but I wouldn't go to a venue like that.
I wonder if that's an actual photo or a generative photo where somebody said, make this scene up for us, and I wasn't able to zoom in enough.
That's an actual photo.
You think that's an actual photo? Well, maybe it was just in the beginning of bringing up the lights on the talent. Who knows? You're right. That's a weird split. By the way, our one of our many folks in the chat who happens to be a lighting designer expert, Talalak Lopez Waterman, said if they're using chain hoists, they're using laser measures. And if they're using automation hoists, they send the distance feedback back into the system. So lots of innovation in stagecraft and backstage stuff, and this stuff is getting well known. I mean, that's one of the things. Stepper motors have been around now for decades, and boy, they've gotten a lot better and a lot bigger if you need them for that kind of thing. Next question.
This one's from Rian Smith in Trinidad, West Indies. Seems like the movie Sinners had a lighting designer who took specific note not to overlight the darker skin actors. How has OH cinematographers dealt with this in their daily careers?
Alex Lindsay.
I have to admit that I tend to go the other direction. I tend to like to have darker environments with darker complexions, and then be able to expose wider. And the reason for that is that I feel like you get a lot more detail, out of it, and you see a lot more from what's going on. Maybe in a film environment that works, but I think that in an online environment, a lot of times I just feel like you're losing a lot of detail. And I ran into this maybe 25 years ago in Zimbabwe, where I was taking lots of photos and I just accidentally got my exposure off, and the amount of detail that I was getting was amazing, and it was so compelling to see the expressions and a lot of things that a lot of times the camera wasn't picking up when not a little overexposed. And so, one of the things that we do a lot of times is when we're working with folks with darker complexion, we try to darken the backgrounds, so that we have room to go somewhere. It's, for instance, one of the things that's really popular is to wear a lot of white or have a lot of white in the background, and especially for stages and chairs. Try to get away from white, so we have a little bit of headroom, and that means that we can now open that exposure up a little bit without overexposing some of the scenic elements. And so we tend to kind of push back on that a little bit, just because, especially with white, so that we can get those. So I haven't seen Sinners yet. I'm sure that it was shot great. And I'm sure it looks good in a theater environment. It'll be interesting to see how that translates as it moves to TV environments.
Yeah, I think as an aesthetic choice, that makes sense. They're talking about like roadhouse culture in the South in a different era. And so I imagine a lot of darkness will be appropriate for that kind of thing. We used to talk a lot about these exposure splits when I knew a lot of people who were working in wedding photography and things like that. And in the old days when we had less capable cameras, it was sometimes hard. You get a bride with a very dark complexion and a white wedding gown, and that exposure split in trying to even do wedding photography was very difficult to manage. Thankfully, with the raw workflows and the rest of the things, with more exposure latitude available in most of the cameras we use today, it's less a problem than it used to be. But it's still something you have to think about when you're going into a circumstance. Alexander, you had some thoughts.
Yeah, I'm by no means a cinematographer, but I mean, lighting is critical for anything that you do with camera stuff, and I certainly have gotten better over the years with practice and with consulting with people and just doing my own research and learning from others. But I would say this: don't do anything important without having find friends and practice a lot. Have stand-ins, practice on those people before, because if you're going to do anything important with anyone, you don't want to practice on them when they're paying you.
Yeah, we're talking about Luma values, but I will say that seminal moment in my career early on was when I was talking to somebody who was working at Technicolor in LA, and I was talking about that very issue of different skin tones and how you expose harm. And we happened to get into color balance, and he said, you got to realize that most of these color sensors, what they're looking for is not the skin tone, but blood. And for every human on the planet, blood is the same exact color. There's no difference. So, Courtney, you had some other thoughts?
Yeah, and Sinners did a nice job. You got to realize that it's set in the 20s, so there's not a lot of artificial lighting to deal with practically, and it's set in a juke joint, mostly all black cast. So you're dealing with a lot of skin texture that you can highlight with a lot of rim lights and a lot of perspiring people. And since there are a lot of vampires, you don't photograph them in a lot of daylight.
I forgot the
You almost
vampire.
always have to photograph them at night. So
They don't have to look good in mirrors, do they? Next question.
This one's from Paul Vahus in Austin, Texas. Sennheiser just launched the MKH-8018 compact stereo shotgun mic. Would this work well on a Sony ZV-E10 Mark II camera?
And Alexander's going to start us off here. Alexander?
I love Sennheiser shotgun mics. I mean, I love Sennheiser in general. They make a lot of fantastic mics. That looks like a cool microphone if you're looking to get stereo sound going into your camera. However, just remember that a lot of these kind of prosumer cameras, I would call them, don't have very good mic preamps. They have 3.5 millimeter unbalanced jacks. The first thing I would do is get an actual decent field recorder that has proper full-sized XLR jacks with phantom power that have better preamps, be they a Zoom F-Series, a recorder, or Sound Devices Mix Pre, or one of those types of recorders, because the sound quality is going to be so much better on those. You're going to have a much lower noise floor and get better results. So if you're going to spend that kind of money on that microphone, don't put it into a cheap camera mic preamp.
Courtney Gooden.
well, I'm not sure you could put it on a camera like that. It probably has a 5-pin. Maybe it has a breakout to 2 normal XLRs because you have a single XLR connector on that microphone to handle both channels. This is what it looks like. It's part of the MKH series, which is RF condensers, which use RF technology to bias the capsules with, and then they demodulate that FM signal and send it out the XLR connectors. I'm not sure. I'm not real hot on the idea of recording dialogue on a stereo microphone because usually I'm old school, like to generate the ambience in post-production after all the cutting is done. To capture dialogue, I usually like a more directional MKH 416 rather than a stereo microphone. I don't want to be picking up much of the ambience, the stuff that you may not want on your soundtrack while you're capturing dramatic. It'd be okay for a documentary, or if you're going to capture, environmental sounds or ambiences to be used and laid in later, it'd be great for that. And because it's a similar shape to a 416, it'll fit in the Rycote windscreen, so you can put a good windscreen on it. I'm not sure. I haven't looked closely at the specs, so I don't know whether it's an MS configuration or a figure 8 or and a cardioid. I'm not sure what's going on inside the capsules there, so I can't really speak about how it captures the environment, the stereo field.
Alex?
Yeah, Mickey said that it's an MS mic, so this is you have a supercardioid pointed forward for this. Yeah, I think this is a highly specialized mic. I don't know why I would use it for something like this. I agree with Mickey that the Rode Video Mic Pro or a Sennheiser MKE400 or MKE200 for small mirrorless cameras. But yeah, this is like putting a really, really complicated, great stereo system into a Jeep. If you've ever been in a Jeep, it's a lot of it wouldn't be worth it. So anyway, I think that I think that this is way overkill for the camera that you're talking about. And I don't think I would put this camera specifically on. I wouldn't put this mic on a camera. Like if I'm using this mic, it would be on a boom pole on something else and recording it. I don't think I would, if I'm going to spend this kind of money on a mic and try to gather ambient with it, because it's really designed for ambient. I would have a specialist using it separately from the camera.
Mickey also noticed in the chat that he doesn't use full-size shotguns on top of small cameras, as there's a bigger chance of interfering with camera operations and sticking into the frame. And I've run across that a few times trying to use something like my 416 on top of a small camera. They're just, unless you mount them way back and then they hang over the back end, it's really uncomfortable as a system. Next question.
Samuel Nordvik in Norway. Courtney, what is the little HDMI to H.264 recorder that you have used and showed in the past?
Courtney?
The one I've showed in the past didn't have a name on it. This company called ClearClick makes one. This is an updated version of the one that I was showing. It's shaped basically the same. But this one has, besides the HDMI inputs and throughputs, you just feed The other one, you just feed HDMI in and HDMI out. It has a USB connector in it to record onto. This one has analog inputs as well. So it has component RCA, AV, VGA, YPBR. So if you're going to capture your VHS tapes or something, it's great for doing something like that. Or if you just want to record gameplay or anything that has HDMI out, 1080p, it records H.264 onto a USB stick or connection to your you use USB storage, or you can connect it to your computer and store things on your computer. And they're about $160 right now on Amazon until the tariffs kick in.
Fingers crossed. Don't forget, we have additional shows that we're mounting every week now. Extra hours on Monday for those around the world for whom the main show timing doesn't fit and you want something offset. That's a great way. On Tuesday, we're mounting special shows occasionally. On Thursday, The Rundown with David Paskin. He hosts a panel that takes a deep dive into the why behind text. I've been a part of that show a couple of times. It's really fun and an interesting conversation. So those are some of the things you can do on office hours when you can't make the morning show. But we think you will every day anyway. Let's go to our next question.
David Brady in New York City, New York, USA. What are the steps to set up a Dante and Zoom Rooms, Windows and Mac? Should DVS be used, or would an AVIO adapter be the way to go?
Ronnie Hofsaway.
Yeah, I've tested both, but only on Mac. I don't have too much experience with Windows platforms. So DVS on Mac is really depending on the network interface, and that you have another external interface, not using the built-in that is currently coming with your Mac appliance, like the Mac Mini or other machines. They are known to be causing trouble for Dante audio going out of them. But a good idea to use is to use I have a few of for those that doesn't know what the AVIO adapters is. This is one of the ones we are using. This is a USB device connected to the machine you are using for Zoom Rooms. It will appear as 2 inputs and 2 outputs, and it's the connectivity to the machine is through USB, not using the network. And then it has a network adapter or network Ethernet plug in the other end that you can connect to the rest of the Dante network. And using DVS is, for my experience, it's been a little bit allergic to different versions of the OS and the software being used. So I would say that the most secure way of doing this is to use these USB Dante audio AVIO adapters. They've been a little bit more rugged, so to speak.
Alex.
Yeah, we use the DVS all the time. We do use a separate, so we use a USB to Ethernet adapter, and so that's going to be our connection to the network. Just a reminder that you can't run the whole thing on DVS alone. You need a piece of hardware with one of the chips in it to clock it properly. So you can't just run a bunch of DVS. But if you have some piece of hardware somewhere in the system, the big advantage, of course, is that you get a lot more channels out. So now you can be sending lots of channels back and forth, and we've been 90% successful with using the Ethernet just straight out of the Mac. But 90 is not enough for production, so we typically have an adapter that makes that go to pretty close to 100.
Alexander.
Yeah, like was already mentioned, the Dante or the Audinate AVIO hardware interfaces, and they make many of those things. They are limited to 2 in, 2 out. As far as the interface is concerned, I own a few of those. I own the USB-C versions, like Ronnie. I find them very, very useful. And of course, if you do need multiple channels, the Dante Virtual Sound Card stuff is a lot more flexible. I would say make sure you test things very, very thoroughly, and don't just willy-nilly upgrade your operating system, because your entire Dante system can basically come crashing down, as Ronnie kind of alluded to with operating systems. Make sure you're using a qualified operating system. Other advantages with Dante Virtual Sound Card, of course, is once you do all your routing, you can also save Dante presets as XML files and restore them. So it's very, very convenient for if you've got different shows, different configurations you need to load with different interfaces, different hardware, and that kind of stuff. So Dante Virtual Sound Card is a lot more flexible.
Alex, you wanted to come back in?
I will say that we do use the Audinate, like all the converters, the Bluetooth, the XLR, the USBs, so we use those very, very heavily to integrate with lots of other things. It's just an Ethernet. Like, for instance, even when we're doing PA, we have self-powered speakers and we just run Ethernet to the speaker and then convert it. So those are the AVIO adapters are something that I've got boxes of. But in the case of the Mac, typically we're using AVS.
And Ronnie, you had another thought? Oh, excuse me.
Yeah. DVS. Yeah.
Ronnie?
Yeah, and there's a link in the chat from our friends at Zoom, which describes the dependency of the hardware and the software using this on Zoom Rooms.
So appreciative of this community. Boy, when you're looking for answers, sometimes you get the exact source of the answer that you need. Next question.
Andre Dole in Berlin just stumbled across this foldable travel mouse. Thoughts?
You read that as foldable travel house, and I was going, how did they do that? But a foldable travel mouse.
I'm in for that.
Yeah, Jason Bache.
Okay, I'm well aware of the problem that this is trying to address, and part of me just wants to get it to see if it actually does. So let me just cut over here to show it to everybody. So basically, this is an origami style that is held in place with a looks like a rare earth magnet, and the way that it comes together is a little strange. And if you look carefully in the video, they're holding it very gingerly. And I'm immediately suspect of it has to be on a laptop cover. So how well could it actually be tracking, on any device that, isn't a perfect surface? The other thing is battery life. That said, yes, I like using mice. I prefer them to a trackpad, especially if I'm really busy. The other problem, though, is that I tend to get pretty rough with my mice when I'm working. And so to that end, I have a feeling if it were to crush only once, it would be dead to me.
Interesting. Alex Lindsay, your thoughts?
Yeah, when I'm traveling, I would just use a trackpad. I'm afraid that I don't get the build weird mouse to avoid having, people have to be really committed to having a mouse, given that most of what you could do is with the trackpad. I don't understand it. As far as it's going to be a funky, the ergonomics of it are going to be really funky. And so I just feel like that would be something that I wouldn't want to deal with.
Courtney?
Yeah, you say you stumbled across it. You shouldn't have left it on the floor. See, that's the problem. No, I think this is something that is not a solution really to a problem that people really don't have. And because the scroll wheel is just you drag your finger across the surface of that textured cloth surface, I don't think. I wonder how it's going to tell the difference between a scroll and a tap. What I use for travel in all my laptops, I use these retractable cord USB mini mouses. Mini mouse. And it's fairly tiny. It has a regular scroll wheel. It has a left and a right button, and so it feels like a normal mouse. It doesn't need batteries because it plugs into your USB connector and has that retractable cord on it. So I just throw those in my fits easily inside the my case for even an 11-inch laptop. So if I need a mouse for precision, most of the time I use the trackpad on my laptops, but if I need a mouse or I need the scroll wheel to, zoom in and zoom out, that kind of stuff, it's pretty hard to do on a trackpad sometimes. I use one of the little verbatim travel mouses. Yeah, that one, when it's flat, it takes up, it's like this big, it's bigger than your pocket. So I don't know where you'd carry it. You'd have to carry it in a pretty large case when it's flattened out, so it doesn't make much sense to me. And plus, it has a flat battery that you have to deal with.
Alex, you wanted to come back?
Yeah, Jack Cannon said that the mouse is way better than a trackpad and just budget space for a nice mouse. And I do agree. I just want to say I do agree that the mouse is better, especially on the road, to have a good mouse there. But what I will, and Jack uses a Logitech G502. So I do agree with Jack that having a mouse is great. I just don't think I would get a mouse that has what I would consider pretty messed up ergonomics. I don't think that would be better than a trackpad. So what they're showing here does not look like it improves the situation over a trackpad. A good mouse absolutely does.
Well, I'm going to be the contrarian here with that. I haven't owned a mouse on my desktop. I actually still have one in a thing, and I pulled back an old iMac that I'm rehabbing, and I had the mouse with that. But that's the first time I've touched one in about 10 years. I don't usually use mice, and I did for my first 15 years of computing every day. In fact, my original 128 Mac sitting over there was my first time touching a mouse, and for 15 years after that, I used nothing but that. But somehow, during a crisis in needing to use my laptop for a while, I got so used to trackpads that I've never gone back. So I guess the answer to me is to each their own. Whatever works for you is what you should use. And if you need the precision and tactile thing of throwing your hand out onto a mouse 100 times a day, do that. That's appropriate. I'm just not going to do it anymore. That's just me. Next question.
This one's from Guy Cochran in Seattle, USA. Could you see yourself using auto AI rough cuts?
Alex, what do you think? Have you experimented with this?
I have not. I looked at it. So what this says it can do is do the editing for you. So you give it a bunch of footage, and it's going to start to break down some of what it could do here. So it does kind of automated rough cuts, tries to story beats revealed, instant summaries. As a thought process of thinking about something or getting another opinion, maybe. The question is, I can see how it could improve someone who is average or below average in doing this. So that as they get started, they don't really know what to look for. I think that it would be hard for it to compete with someone at a higher level. Now, we have to remember, though, that when we think about the people who it would benefit in the pyramid, it probably benefits everyone down here. so there's probably a market for it. But people who are, I think people who are discerning or do a lot of this would probably clutch their pearls a little bit at a computer telling them how to edit something together. But I will say that in a fast turnaround, one of the things they talk about is highlights and grabbing certain things. A lot of times I don't do it, but 090 does a lot of clipping services where we clip things from a live event, and those are getting put up, to social as the event's still going on. And so I can see in that environment being able to load something in here and having it find things for us could be beneficial.
Ronnie, hops away.
Yeah, I think if this was in the last example that Alex was mentioning, if you're on a conference, I could see today that we could film and have a run and gun kind of filming throughout the conference, then just quickly throw it into a rough cut generator, and then have something that is viewable, let's say in the next pause in the conference, etc. But I think this will be more and more technology that we are starting to use, like tools, but there will still be a lot of competent people using it. We started, as many knows, Blackmagic has put some auto cutting into the DaVinci Resolve for multicam edits. We tried to test that and see that it has some limitations still. But I'm absolutely sure that we will start using these technologies as tools. For now, I just imagine doing my home video of my 2 cats and some of the family and just have it rough cut a video in the style of Stephen King. That would be cool.
To me, the interesting thing about this is I'm kind of sensing a race to the middle, which is that the beginners are finding it easier and easier to get to the midpoint with all the AI assistance that's coming in. My concern, or my curiosity, it's not really a concern, is will the people who would have been at the top through a lot of dedicated effort find that it's so easy to use these automated tools that they'll never push into that top 1% of people who really work hard to get through all the stages of understanding something. It's a curiosity for me now, and I'm just trying to figure out what the AI effect on everybody of most people being able to do most jobs adequately with the help of all these tools, and what that's going to mean 10, 15, 20 years for the next couple of generations as they get accustomed to having all these tools. It's a fascinating time to be alive. So, next question.
Andy Coconover in Viera, Florida, USA. As a presenter, how do you promote emotional intelligence during Zoom meetings?
Oh, boy, crack this one and you're going to be rich. Jason Bache, let's start off.
Okay, so emotional intelligence in this case, I think most of the principles are going to apply whether you're in person or over Zoom. But, to do stuff like telegraph emotional energy, maintain eye contact, get feedback and engagement from your audience. I think, number one, get a teleprompter so you've got good eye contact. Never read your slides. Get great AV equipment so people can see and hear you clearly. And then, the miracle of Zoom is that you can always just grade your own game footage. So present, record, playback, critique, repeat. That's the kind of ways, at least initially, that I would think of to take the energy and bring it into Zoom.
I'll toss a +1 on that. Courtney Gooden?
Only have meetings with emotionally intelligent people. That's what I but I think, a thing that goes a long way toward making a good meeting is make sure you have a moderator who's in charge of, like we do here, calling on people and managing who speaks when. So you get a bunch of people into a Zoom meeting that all have open mics. It gets to be chaotic and people are interrupting other people and it can degrade into something that is really unwatchable or unattendable. So coordinate and organize the meeting, have strict protocol on who speaks when, only speak when called upon, and only unmute. And, the most strict version of this is to have the moderator actually control the muting and unmuting of the speakers of the other people. That way you don't have people speaking up extemporaneously like I do here sometimes. So that's one way we manage it. And it's very carefully managed here in this Zoom meeting.
I love the comments on this whole thing. Alex, your take.
Yeah, I'm in a lot of online meetings. I think that one of the things I do is I have a tendency to just look at what the environment is and be in that environment. If no one turns their camera on, I don't turn my camera on. Like I just leave it off and it's just a phone call basically. If people turn as soon as someone starts turning their cameras on, I'll start turning my camera on and everything else. I do think that better audio and video makes the meeting a lot more enjoyable. So I'm used to this and a handful of other meetings that I have where everybody's got great mics and cameras and everything else. And I can say that it is far easier, like from a cognitive load perspective, to be in an environment where everybody's well equipped, to do what they're doing. I think that would be like if you walked into a conference room that had traffic noise and banging and all kinds of other things and bad audio. I think that you'd be like, why are we using that conference room? So the reason we go into the conference room is because hopefully we can all talk, and I think that a lot of times we don't make that actually happen. I think there's some structure. It depends on how big the meeting is. I think that definitely having a sense of it. I have kind of grown to enjoy, I guess. There's one company that we work with that starts their meetings. The meeting is set at the top of the hour, but it's known that they're going to start 5 minutes into the meeting. Like there's 5 minutes of play in the beginning, let everyone kind of come in and chit chat. And there's something about that very informal first 5 minutes that I've kind of gotten sold on, of having like five. You'll see that when we do like the many of the meetings that we have here, like the volunteer meeting or the other meetings like that, I often lean into this kind of like the first 5 minutes is us just chit chatting, and then we start the meeting 5 minutes in. So I think that actually works fairly well. I will say that one of the big EQ things is to have people at least start then. so that's the that's the hard part there. Anyway, so I think those are some of the things. I will say the thing that makes the biggest difference is after doing this for the last 5 years and being in maybe 3 to 6 hours of meetings a day, man, does people's audio and video quality make a difference. If everybody's got good audio and video, you can sit in something for hours. If they don't, you're just waiting to leave.
Boy, I love the comments. We got a lot of good ones here. My favorite is probably Ryan Thomason's Eat, Sleep, Rave, Repeat. I think I want to be in your meetings. And Roz Humphreys says the goals of a meeting will dictate what the emphasis of communications can be. And that's been my experience as well. Next, before we go to the next question, let me make the note. If you value what we do here, there are a few ways you can help. You can like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can volunteer at officehours.global volunteer. We'd love to have you join the community, and you'll be learning a lot while you're contributing a lot. Become part of the team that makes all this possible. Or you can donate simply at officehours.global/donate. All right, next question.
This one is from Michael Anderson in Bozeman, Montana. Current recommendation for a mini PC that runs Windows 11 Pro and multiple monitor capable, looking to run simple programs and SDR radio software.
Courtney Gooden's going to start us off here. Courtney?
Well, I'm fairly partial to the, first of all, if you need something silent, the Melee Quieter, this is a Quieter 4C. I put a label on it there. These are nice because they're fanless. You can put a full-size NVMe drive up to 4 terabytes inside there. It has 3 USB 3 ports on the top, and it has 2 full-size HDMI, and of course it has a gigabit Ethernet. And I made these little stands for them so that they fit in like this, so they stand vertical like this. They get good airflow on both sides, and it still has access to all the ports. More recently, I've been using these GMK techs. These have a small fan in them, so that could go wrong. The little teeny one here, which is the PC N97, it's the G5 micro desktop. I like the arrangement of the ports on this. It has 2 full-size HDMI ports plus gigabit Ethernet and a USB 3 all in the back, plus analog. This is the power input on this USB-C and an analog input-output. And this one also has a micro SD card slot on the side here so that you can add some extra storage if you want it. These come with about 512. I think the current pricing, while they're still in stock, 143 minus 5%, so around $137. They came out with a new one. This is an N97, which will run at 2.3 gigahertz. This new one, which is bigger, if you compare the sizes between the two, is an N150, and it has a little more connectivity on it. It has 2 gigabit Ethernet ports on it and 3 monitor ports on it. So 2 HDMI and 1 display port, all coming out of one side, and 3 USB 3 ports on the side to plug your software radio into. I don't like the arrangement of the ports on this because they're coming out of 3 sides instead of most of the ports coming out of the back. So when you set it on a desk, it's got wires going in all directions. But if you're going to mount it on the back, they come with VESA mounts with those 2 little screw holes in the back that'll let you mount it to the back of a monitor. So it's fairly handy for that. And this N150 is great. These are all quad-core Intel Celeron chips. So Zoom still discriminates against them and won't let you use 1080p on them. Come on, Zoom. Ungray out that box.
Alexander Knight.
Yeah, Courtney covered it. I just buy what Courtney suggests. I just bought a Quieter 4C, added it to my setup a couple of weeks ago, and I have 3 Melee PCs now. I love the fact that they're fanless. They suffer too, though, from kind of the similar thing to the GMK tech, but not quite as bad, of having ports on different sides. So it is annoying having some USB cables coming out of one end and HDMI coming out of the other end, which is annoying. If they just made them a little bit bigger, you could have all the ports at the back, but then that makes the box a lot bigger. But they've been fantastic, and they come with a Windows 11 Pro license that's just vanilla. There's no antivirus software. There's no spyware, malware, any extra junk on there that slows the computer down.
Next question.
Chris Fonte in Columbia, South Carolina. Does the panel have any cloud experience with anything other than AWS? Good, bad, ugly.
And Alexander Lindsay is going to help you.
Of course, we use a lot of different tools online. So there's a lot of cloud services that we are adding to something that we might be able to use AWS for. But for the most part, most of our development has been on AWS. We have done a little bit of Azure work, and that Azure really felt like was built for larger companies. Like it's kind of when we started to work with it, it just felt like it was a very enterprise solution, as opposed to a more kind of smaller, put something together solution. I think that AWS does that probably a little bit more effectively. John Wallace says that he uses Google and Azure heavily. My guess is for things that need larger infrastructure. so that's that I think because that's what we found is that it just didn't really line up to what we were doing there.
Thanks for the question, Chris. And let's go to our next question.
Roscoe Jones in Madison, Indiana. Any thoughts on NAB attendance being over 50% first-timers out of 55,000 attendees? Also note that 25% travel from other countries.
Yeah, that's interesting. Alex, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that it's really interesting they brought so many new folks in. That's great from their marketing perspective. The question, of course, next year will be, can they keep them? And I think that, I think NAB it's one of the only conferences that I have gone to reliably for, I think now very close to 30 years, if not 30. I'm trying to think about it exactly, but I think this one might have been my 30th, maybe 31st year. And I may have missed one or two of them in the last 30 years. And so NAB and there's something about, there's hardware there. There's things to look at. There's people to talk to. It's not just, if it's software stuff, you can find that online. But there's something about being able to go and play with the things that you're looking at. I think CES has that value to some degree as well. But I think that NAB for us, I do think it's worth going. I was a little it was unfortunate. It was a great opportunity to do some more work that week for a client. But it was unfortunate that I didn't get to stay for the other 3 days of NAB because it's one of the few conferences that I make, actually the only one that I make reliably. So it's a great conference, and I'm glad that a lot of people came to it. I think that it is one of the challenges is figuring out how to balance the creator economy, and they're working on that. One of the things they're talking a lot about is, that they have a whole creator studio up on the South Hall and trying to really figure out how to serve creators more effectively. Because one of the challenges really is that a lot of the new creators don't even know that NAB exists or barely pay attention to it. When you look at the kind of conference proceedings they have, it's really not creator oriented. It's mostly like big infrastructure. So they are starting to kind of build that up, and some of the folks within office hours have been connected to that and working on it. So it'll be interesting to see how that progresses. If they can figure that turnout, I think that they can really succeed and continue to expand.
Courtney Gooden.
Well, I've been going to NAB until I stopped it right after the pandemic. I haven't gone since the pandemic for almost 50 years. And I tell you, in the early years, it was a convention designed for broadcasters. In other words, television stations at the time, when it was the National Association of Broadcasters, which is what NAB stands for. So at that time, most of the equipment you would see is stuff you would see in a standard television station or television studio. There wasn't a whole lot of stuff that was aimed at, there weren't a lot of computers. There weren't a lot of small cameras, Canon cameras, those kind of things. Mainly, the big players, Hitachi, Sony, and RCA, and a lot of Ikegami, some voices from the past. And then it got, as we broadcasting moved into streaming, the whole attendance to the convention changed. It used to be an international convention, and you would see a lot of people from all over the world coming to the NAB convention, because that would be the convention that the television studios and stations and networking operations and transmitters would come to, that one convention a year from all over the world to put in their orders for purchase equipment. All the networks would have representatives there. And you look at the attendance here. This is a chart from 2017 to 2025 here. So you can see the precipitous drop-off in attendance. Of course, the big hole there is COVID there in the middle. There was not one in 2020, I think. But, you can see there was a little bit of a rebound, and then it's starting to go down again. It's a lot more of the YouTube crew, the YouTube people that are influencers that are looking for equipment and looking for, portable and prosumer type gear, and less of the broadcast gear as broadcast stations move a little further into the background. So 55,000, it used to be 100 to 125,000 people that would attend that convention every year. So it's down considerably.
Next question.
Rian Smith in Trinidad, West Indies. Alex, Lindsay, you said 09 does live cuts to socials. Can you give guidance on how that biz looks like?
Alex?
Yeah, so we 090 Media, we do that clipping, and I'm not personally involved with it too much, so I can only give you what I know from the outside. It's just another division within the company. But a lot of it is around sporting events. So it might be a boxing event, WWE, other sporting events that are going on. And what you're looking for, of course, is these highlights, and those are done. And maybe we'll see if we can bring the folks on the software that we use out of France that we use to do the clipping, but it's all done in the cloud. So we're getting a feed in the cloud. People are setting in and out points and being able to deliver those clips very, very fast. And the goal is that you have to really reduce the friction that is there, but you also need to be able to build a big cloud team. So people who are managing this are not going to be at the venue or on site. They're all going to be somewhere online. Able to talk to each other, able to discuss those things, able to move very quickly. And so you might have anywhere from 2 or 3 people up to 8 or 10 people that are all looking at this content with their own and putting out these clips. The clips are highly viral. They're very successful, being able to get stuff out. But a lot of it, especially when it comes to sports, the shelf life on sports material is very short. Like, a couple hours after the event, generally not valuable. So you have to be able to get something that is delivering, this very quickly. Many of these clips are in the sub 1 minute. Almost all the clips are in a sub 1 minute thing. They're just grabbing onto a moment, so that's how we work on it. 090. Alex asked why it's called 090. It's because 090 is East, and the founder is Mark East. so that's why it's 090.
Next question.
Paul Volhus in Austin, Texas. Are the new Sony MDR-M1 headphones more than can be expected?
It depends on your expectations. Alexander Knight, what do you think?
I don't know. I don't have a pair here. Paul, I thought you put one in the mail for me to test. As soon as I get that, I will put them on and I will tell you. I'm not a big fan of Sony headphones. I know a lot of people love the tried and true 7506s. I just don't think those headphones sound very good. There are so many better options. Beyerdynamic. Look, if you're looking for comfortable, good sounding headphones that are closed back, the DT9 or DT770s from Beyerdynamic, to my ears, way more natural sounding, way more well balanced. Doesn't have the hyped high end and the lack of low end that the MDR 7506 is at. I mean, if the MDR M1s are better, I'd be willing to give them a shot. But I just haven't had the best time with Sony headphones in the past, and I've moved on to other options.
Ronnie?
Well, I have to disagree. I've been using the 7506 for ages, and this is how they look for people that doesn't know them. You will identify them in a lot of productions around the world. They are kind of budget friendly when you need a lot of them. And since I've been mixing on these headphones, my ears are used to that sound, and I always get a kind of coherent result. If I was to just put a new headset on my ears and start doing the same job that I do with the studio monitors from Sony that I use, I probably would destroy the mix and have it sound a lot different. So it depends. If this is something that you are purchasing as your first working headset, that is okay. I think the Sony in this price class is competing with, let's say, more professional like the Sennheiser 660s, etc. But just remember, this is an open back. So if you're in a workplace where there are other people, you will be very annoying to them. So I'll stay with the cheaper Sony ones.
I'm going to weigh in on this since I've been using 7506s for a long time. Are they flat? Are they even? No. and they're not supposed to be. That's my take on them. I want a headphone, particularly when I'm field recording, that reveals flaws in the work that I'm trying to do. And most of the work I've done over my life is recording human voices. So for me, the most critical function of a set of headphones, particularly in field recording, is to make sure somebody is pronouncing things correctly. So that same presence peak that 7506s has always exhibited helps me understand it. Are the S's splashing? Is their mouth too moist? Am I hearing too many mouth noises? What is the nature of this recording that I'm taking back, and the rest of my workflow is going to depend on? Whether or not that's important to you is a wholly different thing. I mean, if you're mixing for disco, this would be the worst headphones in the world to use because they do not have a gigantic overhyped bottom end that'll be equivalent to the nightclub that this mix is going into, where they will have a hyped bottom end. And so that's where you want those Boses or something else that has the big bottom end there. So for me, they're speech-oriented tools to be able to make field recording easier. And you also get used to them over time, and you start to be able to see where the flaws are in signals coming to you. I had the same experience in my 7506s when I was getting used to them that I had with these little IFB ear monitors. I don't know if you remember the early days of office hours, but I would always, for critical doing mic checks at the beginning of the show, put my 7506s on. Why? Because I knew them. I knew what people were supposed to sound like. When I started putting the in-ear monitors in, at first I was lost about mixing, but over the course of time I got used to them, and I actually can listen for the same problems that I hear in my regular headphones in these IFB headphones. And that means I don't have to keep changing out, but I needed to adapt to them. And I think that's what everybody does with headphones. So I think it's another case of whatever works for you, you should use. Whatever you condition yourself to being able to critically listen on to get the data that you need out of it, that, in my opinion, that's where you should go. All right. Everybody, thank you so much for spending time with us today. I hope you enjoyed the show. For the constituencies that put this show on, we can't thank you enough every day for showing up. All of our listeners or viewers, whether you're watching or just listening on some sort of audio thing, thank you for being here, and thank you for adding your questions. You really do program this show and make everything possible by both putting your questions in and voting those questions up and down. So thank you for that. For the incredible panelists who come in here every day and make this happen, thank you so much for showing up and adding your expertise to the mix. We can't do this show without you. And that is also true of our incredible back-end tech team, all the people in the back end of the show who are pushing buttons or working on planning and getting guests in, and generally just making the marketing, the internet access, programming things that need to be programmed. There's just an incredible crew of very talented people back there. So thank you to all those people, some of whom you will see in the credits as it rolls here at the end. But thank you all. Clock traversal today, 45,000 miles. That's 72,000 kilometers, 355 million bananas for scale. It's Thursday night. That means the rundown is tonight. Tune in. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Alex, I visited your favorite place last night, Network Operations Center for the Switch.
Oh, there you go. How was the open house?
It was interesting. They have a couple of nice studios there.
Yeah,
and this is they have two of these operation centers, and it's very.
Was there anything in the studios?
Well, there were Pop the Balloon, I think, from Netflix. Was it Netflix or Amazon? Amazon has some show called Pop the Balloon. There was someone in one of those studios. The other studio was empty at the current time.
Yeah.
But there's a bunch of smaller insert studios. Those are the two big studios that are, big stages.
Did they talk about the theaters?
They did not talk about putting things in the theaters, but they did mention, a lot of the sports stuff. They did mention the deal they have with AMC for putting live stuff in the theaters. But they didn't make
just in passing. They just kind of mentioned. I was curious what they were going to say. There.
Interesting. Is that what you're working on?
Yeah. every day, all day. so anyway, cool. All right. Thanks. That looks great.
Ta-ta for now.
Yeah, exactly.